going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And we got some breaking news here on a Wednesday morning. The Bengals are signing linebacker Joe Giles-Harris in free agency, and he will be a part of the Cincinnati Bengals football team going forward. We'll see exactly if he, in fact, is going to make the team and really be around for the regular season or not, but he certainly is another body that the Bengals now have at that linebacker position. We're going to be spending some time talking about Joe Giles-Harris as well as really the entirety of the Bengals linebacker room as it currently sits right now, but make sure you guys hit that sub button if you haven't done so already. When Cincinnati Bengals breaking news happens, we've got you covered with a video. If they make any more signings, obviously we will have a video and everything with Trey Hendrickson, of course. We got you covered here at the channel as well. So don't miss out on any Cincinnati Bengals breaking news. Hit that sub button right now, youtube.com/BengalsTV. All right, Joe Giles-Harris is a veteran player, right? In 2019, he was signed as a college free agent, played his collegiate ball at Duke, and was signed by the Jaguars that first season for him back in 2019. Has only played in 22 career games, so this isn't a guy that plays a ton of football. Really not much on the defensive side of the football anyway, but the reason why he is still playing professional football is because what he can do from a special teams perspective. So that's kind of when I get to thinking about where the Cincinnati Bengals are at from a roster perspective. Darren Simmons certainly could use a guy like Joe Giles-Harris, but do I think he's going to come in and compete with the linebackers, right? Is he going to be Logan Wilson's running mate? Is he going to compete with Oren Burks? Absolutely not. That's not something that's going to happen here with Joe Giles-Harris, but I do believe he could be a weapon for you on special teams, assuming he is able to do the right things, in camp, throughout the offseason, in the preseason. The preseason is going to be huge for Joe Giles-Harris, and ultimately, if he's going to make the team, it's going to be with that help there on special teams. But really interesting that Cincinnati's kind of making another move, right? I was kind of surprised that they were going to, sign somebody else. Again, this isn't a high-profile signing by any stretch of the imagination, bringing in Joe Giles-Harris, but it kind of felt like that Lucas Patrick signing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago kind of was their last move leading up to the NFL draft. But they opt to bring in a linebacker. I don't think that eliminates taking a linebacker in the first round whatsoever, to be completely honest with you. We've talked about guys like Jahad Campbell. I think he clearly is the best linebacker in this class. Obviously, Jalen Walker, more of an outside linebacker / edge rusher. But this signing, I don't think impacts that whatsoever for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's get to the pin comment now of today's show. Grade the signing for me of Joe Giles-Harris in the comment section of today's video. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think. This isn't something I don't think we should be excited about, but I don't think it's something we should be ticked off about either as well. Cincinnati need to do at least add a little bit of depth in that linebacker room, and they do it this morning with the signing of Joe Giles-Harris. But let me know what you guys think. It is the pin comment, by the way, of today's show. So if that ad comes here on YouTube, you know the drill. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think. Here's what the Bengals linebacker room currently sits at, right? Obviously, Logan Wilson is their kind of guy in that linebacker room. The past couple of years for Wilson haven't been his best, but without Golden coming back, I'm really expecting Logan Wilson to break out in 2025. And as we've talked about here on the show, still got Jermaine Pratt here on this depth chart because still, right now, as we sit here on April 9th, he is still a member of the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe a little surprised he hasn't been cut yet, but I would be shocked if he's out there week 1 in 2025. So someone's going to have to fill that role next to Logan Wilson. Again, it's not going to be Joe Giles-Harris. I'm not even convinced it should be Oren Burks, right? I look at him as more of that third linebacker. So I think linebacker's still very much a need for Cincinnati. And we'll spend some time talking about Oren Burks here in a second. But first, do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Game Time, as today's show is presented by Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. You're getting some MLB tickets. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those MLB tickets. How about those Cincinnati Redlegs? Back-to-back wins for the Reds. They will be back in town this weekend. You can get some tickets over at Game Time. They've got those last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Love the zone deals, right? Save even more when you choose a section and you let Game Time choose the seats for you. Love that all-in pricing tool, right? Toggling this feature up front allows you to see your total up front so you don't get hit with any of those surprise fees at checkout like some of those other ticketing companies can get you with. Also, the seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy with Game Time. Great feature. Really encourage you guys to check that out. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account, redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit here about Oren Burks, right? He's the other linebacker you brought in free agency, really when free agency was getting going. And Burks is a guy that has been around winning, right? He was a big reason, given some of the injuries that Philadelphia sustained defensively, that they were able to kind of keep things together on that side of the football and obviously ultimately win a world championship, defeating Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So I'm excited about Oren Burks. I'm excited to get that new face into that Bengals linebacker room, right? Because it was an area of the team that really, really struggled. Again, I've got all the confidence in the world in Logan Wilson, but beyond that, you needed to get some new faces in there. Akeem Davis-Gaither, yeah, he flashed, he showed you some good things, but ultimately I was happy to see that he moved on and is going to play for the Arizona Cardinals. Love Jermaine Pratt, Bengals legend, but really would like to see him move on as well. Because when I look at the Bengals defense as a whole, you don't just want to run it back with the same guys that you had last year, because obviously that was a disaster as you were one of the worst teams in the National Football League. Going back to Joe Giles-Harris, though, it will be interesting to see what kind of role he carves out for himself. Again, there's no guarantee that he is going to make this football team. Obviously, in the offseason, the rosters, they expand, right? And then as you get closer to the season, they got to shrink down. So you bring in lots of different guys. Joe Giles-Harris is going to be one of those guys for Cincinnati, but he's a veteran. There's a reason why he's been able to stick around for as long as he has, right? Bouncing around practice squads. Was with Buffalo Bills, has had a couple of stints in Jacksonville, obviously with New England as well. It's that special teams ability. And if he's a guy that can go out there and be a willing tackler on special teams, then you're sitting there saying, oh, that's a pretty good signing if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, contract details at this point are not public as of filming, but it will be a one-year deal for Joe Giles-Harris, and we'll just have to wait and stick around and see if he ultimately makes the team when the time comes. Before we get out of here, let me know your guys' one-word reaction to this signing. Let me know in the comments of today's show.